Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you now to our EarthShift Global webinar on sustainability-focused innovation with our speaker, Dan Mackey from Green Mountain Power. Dan Mackey is an energy innovation champion there at Green Mountain Power of Vermont. He's a commercial account representative with over 30 years experience there. In 2021, Dan helped GMP customers with over $500,000 in Tier 3 energy incentive while reducing over 29 million pounds of carbon. So without further ado, take it away, Dan.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So one of the things that we focus on is back a few years ago, Governor Shumlin signed Act 56, which Act 56 is the Clean Energy Act for the state of Vermont, in which it was pretty interesting. He broke it into 3 tiers, and which I won't really get into the first and second, but I will get into the 3rd tier. And the 3rd tier specifically focuses on reducing fossil fuel by 95% by the year 2050. So he actually took a very interesting approach in which he didn't make it the responsibility of the taxpayers, the folks in the state of Vermont, to actually reduce the fossil fuel. He put it on the electric utilities. And when I say that, he made the responsibility of not only the electric utilities, but the efficiency utilities, such as Efficiency Vermont. So one of the things that we focus on is trying to help folks reduce as much fossil fuel as they possibly can through electrification. And one of the ways that we do that could be heat pumps, could be solar, there's many things in which I'll actually get into those a little bit later. So if you could actually move to the next slide, please. So you can see that Green Mountain Power covers about 75% of the state of Vermont, in which we have about 266,000 customers, and we've got a lot of infrastructure scattered throughout, and like most areas in New England, very, very rural, in which we're working on a goal of trying to make 0 outages by the year 2030. So we'll see what happens there, in which hopefully maybe Mother Nature will work with us and maybe she won't. So one of our goals internally is to actually become 100% carbon free and 100% renewable. And here's the interesting part is in 2021, we actually became 100% carbon free. We're still headed down the road of becoming 100% renewable by 2030. And one of our focuses to do that would actually be working directly with our customers in the state of Vermont to install more Tesla Powerwalls, make more smart homes, and actually come up with a means to actually reduce peak load on the grid during peak periods of time, and also getting folks to actually consume energy during high solar times, which if you think about it in today's world, quite often in New England from about 10 a.m. till about 1 p.m. in the summer months, we have a lot of solar out there that's being produced, and how best do we harness that energy? Well, instead of investing in huge battery infrastructure, we're looking at it more from the standpoint, can we actually get folks to consume during that period of time and somehow store it, or maybe just consume it so that we're utilizing all of it. And then potentially on that same hot August day, we could ask them later in the afternoon to actually reduce load. And that could be through battery storage, that could be through heat storage, whether it be a large water tank to actually be able to control things, or even possibly ice, in which we've actually got a few customers out there that actually have ice storage, in which during the summer months, they'll actually release the ice in the cold water and actually cool the area, which is pretty incredible. We do have one of the cleanest electric supplies in the nation. Many of the things that we actually look at and we can help folks reduce fossil fuel with is taking this chart, in which I apologize for not updating. Gas and oil are going to land at this point in time. And if we go back to when this was actually created in 2020, you can actually see that oil versus electricity, it's actually a little cheaper to utilize electricity. And cheap oil, I mean, if you can buy it right, then of course it's a little less expensive than electricity. Propane, when you get to the point that you're $2.75 a gallon, electricity is actually more effective, more efficient, and less expensive. And inexpensive propane, well, once again, if you can buy it at $1.39, then life is good for you. But I don't see many folks. I've heard a few folks recently that are actually paying in excess of $4 a gallon for propane. And I am going through this kind of fast. My apologies. So with Tier 3, we're capable of offering incentives for people with electric vehicles. We actually give folks who register a vehicle, who's a Green Mountain Power customer, register a vehicle in the state of Vermont. If it's an electric vehicle, we'll actually give them a free in-home charger. And part of the reason for us giving them that free in-home charger, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier with peak demand and peak response. So one of the things that we require is to actually be connected to Wi-Fi. And when we need to, we'll reach out and either turn off the charger or slow down the charger. And we actually do have an agreement that we send out to the customers that goes with the charger that states when and why we are doing that. And they can opt out, but very, very few folks do, because we've actually created a rate now that allows people to charge their EVs outside of peak demand periods, and it saves them a few bucks in the long run. One of the interesting things with electric vehicles is you don't have to change the oil. And I'll tell you a true story. I had a Chevrolet Volt, in which first year I had it, it was awesome, which in the winter months, I actually got it in January. In the winter months, driving back and forth to Rutland, I typically would, in that 50-mile commute, would burn a little bit of gasoline, especially in the winter months, just to keep the vehicle warm on the inside. And then flip side, about May of that year, I was capable of driving to and from Rutland every day on 100% electricity. Didn't need to put any gasoline in until about September. And I pulled up to the fuel pumps and I felt kind of foolish because I couldn't remember which side the gas filler was on. So here's kind of a chart based on previous prices of gas as to what the overall cost and maintenance are of an electric vehicle versus a fossil fueled vehicle, and based on 150,000 miles, in which it's very interesting to see, in which I actually experienced this myself with having a hybrid vehicle, not a true electric vehicle, in which we are headed down the road of looking at a true electric vehicle. And with the incentives that are out there today, I mean, some folks based on income level could actually step into a brand new Nissan Leaf for around $14,000. Which is pretty incredible considering it's a $30,000 car. So with the federal incentives, the tax incentives, low to moderate income incentive that we have in the state of Vermont, I've heard of some people actually walking out with a brand new Nissan Leaf for around $12,000, which is absolutely amazing, but the average seems to be around 14. One of the other opportunities with Act 56 and Tier 3 is actually help folks reduce their fossil fuel for heating, because if you think about it, transportation in the state of Vermont, being a rural state, is probably one of the largest consumers of fossil fuel. The next is heating and cooling our homes, in which it's interesting growing up here in the state of Vermont that when I was a kid growing up, the only person in the entire town that I lived in who actually had air conditioning in their car was the real estate agent. And when people say that climate change doesn't exist, well, I say climate change does exist in a big way. Shelburne Library is a really good example of us helping folks reduce fossil fuel through the introduction of cold climate heat pumps. And one of the things that I will say is cold climate heat pumps will not 100% in today's world take care of the heating needs. They're good to about 10 degrees, 0, depending on the manufacturer. But it's always good to have a backup source because you never know what Mother Nature is going to bring to us for weather. But being able to look at, say, 90% of the heating degree days and being able to use cold climate heat pumps to actually heat and cool a space is very incredible. And we've actually helped many folks reduce fossil fuel and install heat pumps. We've actually helped a few folks, and I'll give you another good example. There's a local lumber mill that used to burn 29,000 gallons of diesel fuel a year. And with the Tier 3 incentive, we were actually capable of helping them put in a 3-phase line extension, which they'd wanted to do since 1996, and it was just cost prohibitive. But in this particular situation, with the Tier 3 incentive and helping them with a working lands grant, we actually brought the cost of the 3-phase line extension down so that they only had to pay 1/3 of the cost, which was actually, believe it or not, less than what it was in 96 when they originally looked at it. So it's incredible what we can do to help folks reduce fossil fuel. and be able to control load. And that's one of the other things with the heat pumps. We'll actually give folks a unit that's called a Sensible, and the Sensible connects to the Wi-Fi and connects to the heat pump. The Sensible allows our customers to be able to actually utilize their cell phones to operate their heat pumps remotely. So if they've got Wi-Fi where they are and they've got Wi-Fi in the home and the Sensible is connected, they can turn it on, turn it up, off, whatever they would like to do. On the flip side, one of the things that we ask is during peak demand periods, if we can have the ability to actually increase the temperature by 2 degrees if it's in air conditioning, or decrease the temperature by 2 degrees if it's in heat mode. And you think about it, that's a pretty interesting way of actually flexing storage or reducing load in a very creative way and not really impacting the customers. The customers can override that, but very, very few seem to do that, because if you think about it, 2 degrees typically doesn't make a big difference. It's when you get the 10-degree temperature swing that folks become uncomfortable and aren't happy with what's going on. So as the slide states, there's many, many ways to make a transition. Electric vehicles I talked about, fleet vehicles. We actually have a electric bucket truck on order, as well as a 100% electric rack truck on order for our GMP fleet. We actually have some of the Ford Lightnings on order, and we've partnered with some schools and some local transit authorities to actually bring some electric buses in, which I think at this point in time we have about 7 electric school buses in the state, and we have about 9 electric transit buses, in which working out very, very well. We also provide incentives for workplace and public charging, and to actually put the charging infrastructure in and help the folks be able to overcome that hurdle. Heat pumps, heat pump hot water heaters, once again, those are all cool things, being able to control them and help folks reduce fossil fuel. Geothermal, and if you think about it, geothermal versus a cold climate heat pump, you basically have a COP, or coefficients of performance, for a cold climate heat pump averaging around 3. Whereas with geothermal, you can actually end up with a coefficient of performance of around 7. But quite often, the cost to put in geothermal is very, very cost prohibitive, in which you've got to drill some wells in most instances and actually use ground source heat pumps to pump that, and circulator pumps. But we've actually got quite a few folks that are doing new construction in the state of Vermont, and they're actually moving forward with geothermal, which is awesome. Think about this for a minute. You've got how many colleges out there actually have cafeterias and they have dishwashing facilities. It's amazing that a lot of those dishwashing facilities, and when I say process heating, they actually use propane for most of those. We actually partnered with one of the colleges in the state of Vermont, in which we took out the propane fired dishwasher and actually put an electric dishwasher in there. And believe it or not, they're saving about $500 a year. And the difference in cost between the propane, because that was the only thing that they actually had, well, excuse me, except for the ranges that they utilized propane for. So it's looking at all of those potential things that consume fossil fuel, kind of opens your eyes and make you think, wow, what else could we do? We provided incentive for one of the Meals on Wheels. There we go. They actually had one of their large commercial ovens that was propane that failed just about a week before Christmas, and we were capable of providing them with some incentive. And they actually have a new electric range, and they only lost delivery of Meals on Wheels for 2 days. Line extensions, the example that I gave of the sawmill earlier, that is a perfect example of us actually taking customers that were off grid and bringing them on grid. Heat recovery, think about this, and I don't know if you're familiar with any of the types of heat pumps that are out there today, in which there's a few that are air to water, and those air to water heat pumps, actually you can put a storage tank in, and a buffer tank, excuse me, and you can utilize that buffer tank to store up to 800 gallons of water. We actually have a local fire department that rebuilt their building just recently, and they put in an air-to-water heat pump, and they have an 800-gallon storage tank. And with that 800-gallon storage tank, it's going to allow them to actually enroll in a program that we have called flexible load management. And flexible load management ties directly back to what I had mentioned earlier at the fact that we have excess solar during the morning and we may have a peak demand in the afternoon. So they can actually release that preheated water to actually heat and or cool the space during peak demands. And we work very, very closely with the Efficiency Vermont. And think about it this way. You've got the Energy Efficiency Utility Efficiency Vermont, and you have Green Mountain Power, the electric utility. So Green Mountain Power, we're actually capable of taking care of the fossil fuel savings, whereas bringing Efficiency Vermont to the table, they're actually capable of providing incentives to the customer for any energy efficiency measures, whether it be weatherization, whether it be envelope, or possibly upgrade in equipment from brand A to brand B, which brand A may be more expensive, but its coefficients of performance could be higher, and they may be able to incentivize that on occasions to actually get the customer to step up to the larger, more expensive, or I should say the more expensive unit. So we have a bunch of prescriptive measures in which those allow our customers to actually just go out there and buy the equipment. We did have a mail-in rebate, but we've actually changed that to a point of purchase, and I didn't update the slide, which that just recently happened. So with cold climate heat pumps, our customers can actually get a $500 point of purchase rebate or incentive for purchasing cold climate heat pumps, and Efficiency Vermont puts in an additional $200 to $300 depending on the size of the unit. And folks with the low income adder could actually get up to $1,000. Very similar with heat pump hot water heaters, centrally ducted air source heat pumps, as well as air to water heat pumps. All electric vehicles. It's amazing what is out there for incentives. And we actually incentivize not only new, we incentivize used. And we also do that with plug-in electric vehicles as well, or hybrids. We provide incentives for electric bikes, forklifts. And here's an interesting one. One of my coworkers is actually working with a farm that's actually putting in an electric feed dispenser to actually feed the cows in a freestall barn. In which part of the driver for that, for the customer to move forward with that, is the fact that it's hard to actually get help today and keep them. We provide incentives for electric lawnmowers residentially as well as commercially. And if you bundle electric equipment for home use, such as a leaf blower, hedge trimmer, chainsaw, lawnmower, we actually increase the incentive. We have an app that has been very, very helpful, especially with folks dealing with high bills during the pandemic, and which we've had a lot of solar customers reach out that have excess solar credits, and they've actually shared those with folks to help reduce their electric bill. And that's my last slide. And I did go through that kind of fast. And this is always the fun part for me. And that is to actually have a conversation to see if any of the stuff that I mentioned made any sense and if I lost anyone.
Thank you, Dan. Quite impressive, everything. And we do have questions from the audience. This one is, I've heard one of the criticisms of electrification is the strain it will put on the grid. Large electric loads effectively burning out lines and equipment more quickly than they would otherwise. How is Green Mountain Power countering this?
The way we're countering that is actually asking our customers to allow us to tap into the resources within their home. And one of those prime examples is the heat pumps. When we provide the customers with the Sensible unit, we ask that we can actually reduce the temperature by 2 degrees. Tesla power walls that we've actually installed a bunch of them in customers' homes, in which we also have another program, not only for the Tesla power wall, which is a battery, for bring your own device, which is bring your own battery, in which we ask folks, and we actually pay those that with bring your own device, we pay them to allow us to actually pull power during peak demands out of their batteries. Does that answer the question? Adding infrastructure is going to be very, very expensive.
Yeah. Another question is, Dan, I heard that Green Mountain Power helped people insulate their homes. Do you still do that?
We actually work very closely with Efficiency Vermont. And Efficiency Vermont is actually the entity that was providing insulation for the homes. We did have a program a few years back called eHome. And part of that process was a walkthrough identifying how we could reduce fossil fuel, and we partnered with Efficiency Vermont. They walked through us with us as well, and they would actually provide the incentive towards the weatherization. We would provide this incentive towards cold climate heat pumps, towards heat pump hot water heaters, and the state at that point in time was actually providing Green Mountain Power, helping customers weatherize their homes. It was actually a partnership with Green Mountain Power and Efficiency Vermont, as well as NeighborWorks of Western Vermont, in which we would actually do a walkthrough of a customer's home and identify any opportunities with a thermal camera as to where they should do weatherization, look at their heating and cooling system, look at how they heated their domestic hot water, and come up with a solution for them in which we incentivized all of the electric type of equipment, and Efficiency Vermont incentivized the weatherization.
Okay. Another question is, are there other state organizations like Efficiency Vermont that provide rebates?
There are scattered throughout New England, in which Efficiency Vermont is the efficiency utility for the entire state of Vermont. There are federal incentives out there, in which I understand that if someone installed a cold climate heat pump last year, there was actually a checkbox to receive some federal incentive on your income taxes.
Good. So one of our listeners says, can you please help me convince Eversource here in New Hampshire to provide such great incentives too, please? And what you all offer is so amazing.
I wish there was a way we could do that. But unfortunately, each utility operates a little differently. And here at Green Mountain Power, and I'll back up, and when I say I was here for 30 plus years at Green Mountain Power, was actually, went through the transition of Central Vermont Public Service to Green Mountain Power, in which it's a very interesting transition, in which in the world of Central Vermont Public Service, we wanted our customers to pay their bill and only call us if they had a question or a problem. Flip side, the Green Mountain Power world, we actually are partnering with our customers and working with them hand in hand so that we can actually help reduce the electric consumption, support the current infrastructure that we have for the grid, and not make the electric expense one of the highest things on their monthly pay statement. So I don't know how we can twist. I do know a couple of people at Eversource, but unfortunately, I don't think they're in the position to make those changes and provide those incentives.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to work on it on our own. One other person says, I've read that IEEE is working with the University of Vermont on groundbreaking research to packetize electricity, similar to the way digital communications are sent in packets of data in order to help control demand. For example, a hot water heater could be turned on for 5 minutes at a time to maintain warm instead of running 20 to 30 minutes straight. Has Green Mountain Power been involved with this research? And what are your thoughts? It sounds like it would fit with your flexible load management program.
So we are aware of the research, and we're anxiously anticipating some positive outcomes. We actually have, if you go to our website, we offer a unit that's called a SPAN panel, which is a smart electric panel, which allows the customer and or Green Mountain Power to actually be able to control loads within the home. So as an example, if you have a SPAN panel in your home for your electric panel, you will have every one of those circuits available on your phone. And when you walk out the door, you could turn things on, turn things off, or when you're coming home, you can do the same thing.
Nice. And I understand you have an app for the car too, right? For your home from the car?
We have an app that we can control the car. We don't have an app for our consumers, in which the majority of the EVs that you buy today actually have remote start, so you can remote start, as well as you can program when you want it to charge.
Nice. Okay, another question. What is the status of the pilot with Fermata Energy and their bidirectional charger? Will these chargers be available to your customers at some point? Fermata Energy?
I guess I'm not privy to that particular one.
Okay, well then I'll move on to my next question.
My apologies.
No worries. Are there other, I guess you did other electric company, the other one was learning from Green Mountain Power. Are you helping with other, are you working to help other utility companies? But I guess you said no.
If they reach out, we help.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. And so why do you focus so much energy on your customers, as most electric utilities just want the customers to pay the monthly bill?
They truly are our partners, and they are the ones at the end of the day that are actually paying for us to be in existence through the consumption of electricity. So why not partner with your customers to figure out how best we can do this together and make things move forward in a very cohesive, happy way in which it's working.
Sounds like it. Yeah. I
20
think
years ago, I would have never gone to a customer's home or gone to a customer's business and sat down and had a conversation with them on how they could actually save money by reducing electric consumption and provide them with means to do that. Today, we're doing that.
how wonderful. Well, I think I'm going to keep this webinar short and sweet. It has been sweet to get to know you and get to know what you're doing there. And I thank you for everything.
No problem whatsoever, and I apologize for going through the slides so quickly, but
No
I
apologies
hoped
necessary.
we'd had a lot more questions.
Uh-huh. Next
One thing,
time.
the person who asked the question about Eversource, one of the things I would recommend is reach out to your local representatives and share some of the information that I shared today. Go to Green Mountain Power's website, send them a link to all of our offerings, and that actually may stimulate some interest at the legislative level that could actually drive that back down to the utility level.
That's a dandy idea. Great. Thank you. All
You're
right,
welcome.
then. Thanks so much and take care.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Bye.